that I could fight an army with just me and you, and there's no one could harm me. Oh, but sometimes I can feel a little shy. It's then I need to know that you are there. That's why I'm singing. Be with me, Lord, when I'm down. Be with me, Lord, when I'm lonely. Be with me, Lord, when I'm tired. Be with me, need you wanting. Be with me, Lord, when I'm down. Be with me, Lord, when I'm lonely. Be with me, Lord, when I need you, Lord. Be my only God. I know you said that I would not be tested more than I could be, and that you'd have my best in mind with everything that ever comes my way. I know you're in control, so hear me as I pray, singing, be with me, Lord, when I'm down. Be with me, Lord, when I'm lonely. Be with me, Lord, when I'm tired. Be with me, need you wanting. When I'm down, when I'm low, when I need you, Lord, be my only God. Now help me, Lord, to share what I've been given. Help me make a difference with a life I'm living. As I show my neighbor where to treasure store, help me know you promise you'll be with me, Lord. When I'm lonely, I need you wanting. When I'm down, when I'm low, sometimes I feel I can fight alone with just me and Lord. There's no one around me. Sometimes I can feel a little shy. It's then I need to know that you are there to when I'm down, when I'm lonely, when I'm tired, I need you only. When I'm down, when I'm lonely, when I need you, Lord, be my only God. Be my only God. Be my only God. Be my only God. Amen.
Okay, church, are you ready to worship our God? Well, stand on up, and we're gonna dance. Come on. When the Spirit of the Lord comes upon my heart, I will dance like David danced. Come on, let me hear you.
When the Spirit of the Lord comes upon my heart, I will dance like David danced.
I will dance.
Yes, I will dance.
Oh, yeah.
Dance like David danced.
Come on, you dance. Let me see you. Let me see you dance. Oh, yeah.
Dance like David danced.
Oh, yeah.
I will dance. I will dance. I will dance like David danced.
When the Spirit of the Lord comes upon my heart, I will pray like David prayed. Come on, let me hear you.
When the Spirit of the Lord comes upon my heart, I will pray like David prayed.
We gotta pray.
I will pray.
Oh, yeah.
Pray like David prayed.
Every day we gotta pray.
I will
Oh, yeah.
pray like David prayed.
Take it higher. Take it higher.
I will pray. I will pray. I will pray like David prayed.
When the Spirit of the Lord comes upon my heart, I will sing like David sang. Yes.
like David prayed.
Gotta pray
Pray, I will pray.
every day.
Pray like David prayed.
And we got to dance.
I
Yeah.
will dance
Oh, yeah.
like David danced.
Got to
I
dance.
will dance, dance like David danced.
Gonna dance.
I will dance, I will dance, I will dance like David danced.
When the Spirit of the Lord comes upon my heart, I will dance like David danced. Yeah.
When the Spirit of the Lord comes upon my heart, I will dance like David danced.
David danced.
Well, welcome everyone to our live stream service. I know it's a surprise to see me here, back again. And again, thank you for your prayers. For those who don't know, I had some medical issues and been in and out of hospital and whatnot, but I am regaining strength and had some issues with my knee, but I'm getting better. I mean, thanks to your prayers. Obviously, science, modern medical science has been great. It's been cool to see just how God has worked through that just over the years and decades. Very, very grateful for our medical system and things that all that goes into it. And I know that there could be some issues here and there, but I've been having a really, really awesome recovery and a lot of support, both from my family and from the church family. So thank you for your prayers. We continue on in going through the Bible. In the year of the Bible, we're kind of rounding up and ending the year, which is crazy to think that, man, we're at the end of October, getting ready to get into November. This year seems to go by so quickly. And so today we're, I think a couple of weeks we've been into the New Testament, I believe the last 2 weeks. And so we are trucking along here and we're still in Matthew. We're going to be in Matthew 21, so you can go there. I will have some scriptures on screen for you, but I always encourage you to have your Bible with you as we go through God's Word. And, I want to send a welcome to those who are visiting, that this is maybe your first time listening to our live stream service. Just welcome. And you can click on the links below to get connected with us and go to our website, give us information. We'll definitely reach out to you. Thank you for those who have been here and the members for whatever reason. Maybe you're traveling. Maybe there's some, much like for me, maybe you're stuck at the place, at your house or wherever you're at and unable to come to service. And this is all you have. And thank you for signing on. It means a lot, and even in a special way, because I was there for the past month and a half or so, being at home and just taking in these online videos has been very, very helpful for my faith. So I understand where you're at and I see you. But let's hop into the lesson today. So we're going to be in Matthew 21, and I'm going to do something a little different. For me, I've been, because I've been laid up and been not able to really leave the house, unable to walk and things like that, I've been, reading a ton of stuff, taking a lot of information, and watching a lot of football. So you're going to have a very strange, great lesson, hopefully, but very strange lesson of so many different influences I've had over this month and a half. And so I'm like pent up to preach, and really excited to be able to preach. And so there's going to be, a football theme, and for people who don't like football, I'm sorry. Again, it won't be overly football. There is gospel that we're going to be preaching, but I would say seasoned with some NFL. But going through Matthew, I've read the triumphal entry and Jesus on the donkey, and we're going to read the scriptures here, but also then clearing the temple right afterwards. And it's kind of an interesting structure by Matthew to have Jesus in the triumphal entry and in the next setting clearing the temple. And we'll talk about that. And there are multiple different datings of arranging of clearing the temple. I'm not going to get so much into that, but for those I know who are very familiar with the four Gospels, will see that the ranging of clearing the temple may end up in a different timeline. Doesn't take away from our faith. Either, there was a purpose of why it is set it that way, And we know that each gospel has a particular purpose and the audience that they're addressing, whether Matthew with the Jews, Mark with more of a Gentile focus, Luke gets a little deeper and adds a lot more of history timeline, being, a physician and a Gentile himself. And so they have different influences, and John, written much later, to kind of a more of a different look, having some years have passed, seeing the church grow, and then retelling of the gospel. And so that doesn't take away from the authenticity, doesn't take away from the truth of it. It's just the author's choosing of arranging of events to communicate one thing. But for Matthew to arrange the triumphal entry and then turn around and show the clearing of the temple where Jesus makes the whip and he clears people out of the temple, I think is very purposeful, and we'll talk about that, like I said, later. And so let's hop in. We're in Matthew 21. We're going to start in verse 1. And then, again, I'll have some thoughts. We're going to go through scriptures, and hopefully, again, it helps your faith and helps you connect with God. So Matthew 21 and verse 1, I'm reading the NIV. It says, "As they approached Jerusalem and came to Bethphage on the Mount of Olives, Jesus sent 2 of his disciples, saying to them, 'Go to the village ahead of you, and at once you'll find a donkey tied there with her colt by her. Untie them, bring them to me. If anyone says to you anything, say to them that the Lord needs them, and that will send them right away.' This took place to fulfill what was spoken through the prophet. 'Say to daughter Zion, I see your king comes to you, gentle and riding on a donkey, and a colt and foal of a donkey.' And the disciples went, and as Jesus did, and that he had instructed them. They brought the donkey and the colt and placed their cloaks on them for Jesus to sit on. A very large crowd spread their cloaks on the road, while the others cut branches from the trees and spread them on the road. The crowds went ahead of them, and those who had followed shouted, 'Hosanna, Son of David! Blessed is the one who comes in the name of the Lord. Hosanna, the highest of heaven!' When Jesus entered Jerusalem, the whole city was stirred and asked, 'Who is this?' The crowds answered, 'This is Jesus, the prophet from Nazareth in Galilee.'" Wow. I mean, what an entrance to Matthew 21. What a bang that we start with in Matthew 21. And there's so much chalked in this. Again, for the little time we have to speak, I can't cover everything, but it's dripping with Old Testament references all through these 11 verses here. But like I said, this is going to be a sprinkle of some NFL in here. And I think of, when I read this, I thought of NFL, right? I thought of franchises that have waited a long time to win a Super Bowl, right? Or to win a championship, specifically Super Bowl. And that fan bases it's palpable to feel the starvation, right? Last year, again, I'm going a little football for those who are not into it, but last year you had the Detroit Lions. And everybody know the Detroit Lions stink. But for the last couple seasons, they've been much better. And for me, I love an underdog story. And it's so cool to see when a team, haven't won for a long time, wins it, right? Years ago when LeBron went back to the Cleveland and won a championship for the Cavaliers, or you see the Cubs win and get that monkey off their back, right? Or Boston years ago, right, early 2000s, beat the Yankees, right, when they were down, I think 3-0, and then end up winning the World Series for that year, getting the monkey off their back, right? And to see the tears of these fan bases just elate because it's been so long to see winning, right, in a way, or to win that championship, that elusive dream, right? And then you think of the NFL, Arizona Cardinals probably had the longest starving fan base here, having one Super Bowl appearance, but haven't been back there, right? Detroit Lions, 76 years is kind of what I saw for Cardinals or Detroit Lions. It's been 66 years. And you can go down the list. There's a lot of different teams that have been waiting for a championship. And thinking of recent memory, and I think it's fitting being in Philadelphia, there has been a fan base that have seen victory in 2017, 2018, and the Eagles won the Super Bowl, right? It's been over 50 years. And I talked to different people, because I was on the West Coast. I wasn't in Philly when they won it, when the Eagles won it. But on the West Coast, I don't like the Patriots. I don't think anyone liked the Tom Brady Patriots. But I was hoping for Philly to win. One, because I love underdog stories. And so much leading up to that game we're just even through the playoffs. They were the underdogs, right? In fact, they wore the dog mask. I remember that. And they're like, hey, we're the underdogs. We shouldn't be here, right? You got a backup quarterback who's in place for Carson Wentz because he got hurt, which, had a pretty decent season. But now you're going into playoffs, underdogs, with a backup quarterback, you can't do anything, right? And going into that Super Bowl and all the things and the weight into that. And then winning that Super Bowl. I mean, I felt excited when I saw, Brandon Graham strip sack and then the long Hail Mary pass from Tom Brady to end the game and it be incomplete or knocked down. And I thought, man, this has got to be so cool for this fan base, much like those others I talked about with the Chicago Cubs or the Cavaliers, right? Philly went nuts. And now being here, it's kind of cool. A couple of times I've talked with different families within the church, brothers that I've had some time to kick. Like, how was it that night? Because I love that stuff. I love big events. I love being in the moment. Most of you guys know I'm a nerd, right? Seeing Marvel's Endgame, right? It's an event, right? I'm a big Star Wars guy. We'll go to these conferences, Star Wars conferences, and when they were coming back in 2015, it was like, man, you can feel the energy. It's electric, right? I love big events. And so, man, you can't get bigger than your first Super Bowl win. And so I talked to people, and they're just saying, man, I cried, and everybody was out. We didn't go to sleep. The town was on, pins and needles. I mean, I'm sure the streets were completely empty, right? I mean, if you want to rob someone that night, you just go out. I mean, no one's there, right? Everyone's watching this game. And it took on this kind of almost fairy tale type event. Now, enough about football. We're here for Jesus, right? I say all that to give us a picture of what it was like when Jesus is riding on that donkey. And people are cutting branches down and laying them in the road and just losing their minds. A lot of times we can read the scripture and we're like, oh, wow, that's kind of cool. They really like that. No. It's greater than Philly winning the Super Bowl, right? It's greater than the Cubs knocking a 108-year-old curse and winning the World Series. Cubs is 108 years, right? I just talked about Philly has been over 50 years. When the prophecy that was said when we read in those verses in Matthew 21 about, oh daughter, here's your Savior, riding on a donkey, that had been some 500 years when that was prophesied in Zechariah 9. That's when that prophecy took place. But we know, man, there's prophecies about a Messiah all the way in Genesis. There have been hundreds of years for God's people. What's left, right? Because the kingdoms had split under Israel. The northern kingdom became mostly Israel, and the southern kingdom in Judah, right? Which eventually took on the name Jews. And the northern kingdom of Israel was completely decimated, dismantled, and intermixing. And that's where we get largely the Samaritans from. It's just this mixed race of people. And why the Jews didn't like the Samaritans as much, because they saw them as half-breeds, right? They had really some animosity there. But hundreds of years waiting for a Messiah. Images of seeing, the Eagles win and people in the streets and crying and, please gotta grease, light poles so people are not climbing on things and turning over cars, right? Like, that's the scene of Jesus riding on this donkey. These are hundreds of years. I'm sure there was tears. So be like, mate, this is the Messiah. This is the Messiah. He is here. The prophecy from Zechariah, prophecy, in Genesis 49, prophecy in Deuteronomy, prophecy all over Isaiah 7:14, and you can see the scriptures on screen, Isaiah 9:6-7, Isaiah 53, Jeremiah 23, Daniel. Oh my gosh, in Daniel. Chapter 7, 13-14 in Micah. The prophecies of the Messiah. It's here. And there's been people who've claimed that they have been Messiah up to this point. That idea is not novelty. But man, people felt it this time. Jesus was different, right? He's the quarterback we've been waiting for, right? He's that coach, that hotshot coach you've been waiting for. We've had a winning season with him, with the healings and the preaching and pushing back and for the people. He is the one we've been waiting for. Wow. This is what the people felt. This is what was going through their minds. Well, what does that mean for us? Why is today, right, 2024, as a Christian, if you're not a Christian, I encourage you to study the Bible, right? And maybe you're like, well, why is this important for the Christian faith? It's important is that we need to be grateful that we're basking in that championship, right? We're basking post-cross. Jesus dying on the cross for humanity to give us, to bring us close to God and to wipe away our sins, right? Like we're basking in the win. And have been basking since then. And I'm not saying everything's been great in your life, but man, we have a connection to God that prior to the cross, no one had, right? No one had. You know, I want to read Hebrews 11:13. I thought of this scripture when I thought of, man, how I should view my faith now as a Christian. And Hebrews 11:13. I love Hebrews because it talks about the hall of faith and people who've died and gone before. But I love verse 13. It puts in perspective to how grateful I should be now. It says, all these people were still living by faith when they died, meaning they didn't see the end game. They did not receive the things promised. They only saw them and welcomed them from a distance. And they admitted that they were aliens and strangers on earth. And what this passage is communicating is that there's so many people prior to Jesus dying on the cross that have died for their faith, never seen the end of God's wonderful plan of salvation, right? Those people are crying out, Hosanna, Hosanna, which is a cry for help, but also a plea of jubilation, like save me. Well, Jesus died on the cross, and those who accept him as Lord have been saved. Right? He has given that plan of salvation. We don't have to have the system of sacrifices in the temple set up anymore. He has brought us hope. And so many people prior to Jesus never got to experience it. But they still were faithful until their death. How grateful I should be. How much more grateful I should be knowing that I live in this faith now. And that me having, and not even just living in the faith, but also being in America where I can express and live in the freedom of my faith, right? It's not like I'm basking in the glory of Jesus down the cross and I'm in Rome still trying to hide and not being killed. Like I'm in America, right? It's the best of the best. I'm not saying America's the best, but the opportunity to live out my faith, to wake up in the morning and read my Bible and not have to look over my shoulder because I'm committing a crime from actually reading the Bible. And if you're in America, you need to be grateful for your faith if you're a Christian. And if you're not a Christian, you should be like, what is this? I want to understand what this gratitude is. And to study the Bible. Because, again, all these people prior to Jesus, they were starving for that championship. They were waiting for that Super Bowl. And they died never seeing it. And us, we get to experience it. Now, we weren't there when it happened, right, in the death on the cross. But we're there. We're here now to experience it. And there's another victory at the end of it, right? It's not the end of the story, right? We got to live out our faith. And we'll all see the ultimate win when we get to heaven. And I think as Christians today, is it we've made it and so we can kick back? No. We're still starving for something else now, and we're starving for heaven. As Christians now, we starve for heaven, and we should be focused on getting as many ourselves, but also as many people as possible to heaven. And that's what we have to look forward to. That is the ultimate championship win, is in heaven. Again, you can look on screen of just the different writers of the New Testament, the different apostles, teaching in the New Testament about looking forward to heaven. But I want to go back to Hebrews 11 and read just a couple verses down to 16 because it brings home this point. It says, but now they desire, and they're talking about the people who died, but now they desire better, that is a heavenly country. Therefore, God is not ashamed to be called their God, for he has prepared a city for them. Now, that's including us, right? Now, all those people died, but they're looking for a better country, but that's still us today, looking for that better place, that better country, that better spot in life, which is in heaven. And that's where God is, preparing it for us, preparing the city for us. And that's going to be an incredible, incredible win. Hey, but before we go on to the next point here, I do want to just have a question for you. You know, how grateful are you for your salvation if you're a Christian? You know, what do you appreciate most about Jesus and what he's done for you? And are you starving now for heaven? Let's continue on. Point number 2 is, you know, you can't win with a dysfunctional organization, right? You look at these teams, and believe me, I'm a Raiders fan. We've had it for about 30 years, right? Most of my life of dysfunction, you know, bad draft picks, bad hires of coaches. We fired a guy in the middle of the season last year, right? And the locker room rebelled and wanted the other guy to coach them, and now the guy is coaching them, and it ain't going well, right? It's like you wanted this, and now it's not going well. I understand dysfunctional organizations, right? So this hits home for me. But when we go back to Matthew 21, Jesus comes in this triumphal entry, right? And we just talk about it's palpable. People are crying. It's like, oh my gosh, we this is it. It's happening. We're gonna go to the Super Bowl now, right? But then Jesus in the next part, he has to express some things. And we see that's a different story here when he's actually have to address his people. In Matthew 21 verse 12, Jesus entered the temple courts and drove out all who were buying and selling there. He overturned tables of the money changers and benches and those selling doves. It is written, he said to them, my house will be called a house of prayer, but you're making it a den of robbers. The blind and the lame came to him at the temple, and he healed them. But when the chief priests and the teachers of the law saw the wonderful things he did, and the children shouting at the temple courts, Hosanna, son of David, they were indignant. Do you hear what these children are saying? They asked him. Yes, replied Jesus. Have you never read from the lips of children and infants, you, Lord, have you called forth your praise? Verse 17, and they left him and went out of the city to Bethany where he spent the night. And here's Jesus. He's like, I got a clean house, right? First passage, we open up Matthew 21. You can't get better than that. It's like, man, we are going to make it this year. I can sense it. We got the team. But Jesus is like, no, the organization is jacked up. You got people in the temple, money changers, right? Which is a symbol of bringing the world into the temple, right? They were taking the money that the God's people were giving and exchanging it, right? Which even in that exchange, we're ripping the people off and bringing in worldly money into the temple. You know, trying to make a profit in God's house. He's like, man, this is a den of robbers. You're robbing the presence of God here. There's dysfunction in the organization, right? Dysfunctional organizations, dysfunctional sports teams, they won't win. I've never seen, and I'm not talking about like people having character issues. I'm meaning there's just dysfunction all over the place. From how things are ran, from ownership to coach to players to, you know, undisciplined behavior, all over the place. I've rarely seen teams win that way. And it's no different from God's people. God himself, the greatest entity we can think of, right, is saying we got issues. We got issues in this organization. And it wasn't, you don't see Jesus preaching against Rome. And honestly, when you go through the Gospels, he rarely preaches against Rome. The only kind of confrontations he have with Rome is when he's on the cross with Pilate, or going to the cross and he's on trial with Pilate. Jesus mainly preaches, and his lessons are directed towards the people. The spiritual problems were caused by God's people and not the outside forces and factors, right? And great organizations know that, right? You go think of these sports teams. The issues is not this and we don't have this or all. No, it's like we need to be a great organization and push out the noise, right? A lot of those Patriots teams did a great job of doing that. Pushing out the noise. Focus on what they need to do instead of what everyone's telling them to do, right? God's like, hey, there's issues in the organization. And Jesus saw that. And he went to go clear the table. You know, Rome was never the issue. Rome was just another empire like everybody else, right? There's some people who blame Rome. They blame Rome on this. And you had the zealots who want to overthrow Rome, right? And we could be the same way. It's this, it's our government, it's who's in office, right? It's my job, it's the economy, it's the inflation. It's my wife, it's my husband, it's my kids, it's my roommate. It's me being single, it's me being married, right? I mean, I don't have a degree. I got too many degrees and I got in school debt. We can push all these things of why, the reasons of what we are the way we are. It's my parents, it's my upbringing. If I had this. No, we've got to work on ourselves. Rome, like many other outside forces that God's people had to deal with, right? Whether it's the Canaanites, the Philistines, the Assyrians, the Babylonians, Persians, Greeks, there was always someone messing with God's people. And when they were victorious, they were close to God. When they weren't victorious, they were not close to God. Right? God used those nations to help his people be close to him. And the Bible teaches us that we got to work on ourselves before we try to get out and try to help anyone else, right? And you see those scriptures on screen. These are great scriptures for you to go through of the focus on ourselves before we try to handle anyone else, right? Like this is what God is trying to call us to today as he was back then. The issue is not Rome and bad worship back then. The issue is that you guys are not respecting the temple and the leaders. It starts with the leaders. In the same way for us today. We live in a world that have a lot of issues, a lot of problems. That's not going to be changed by us, by great faithful causes, which I mean, we don't need to do those things, but the world's not going to change for great faithful causes or who we elect or not elect. It's going to be changed by you living your life as a Christian, by you deciding to live your life as a Christian, faithfully, honestly, suffering for it. And we'll get to that later. Living your life as a Christian, that's how the world's going to be changed. That's how the world is going to be turned upside down. Is us living as Christians. And that's me. I'm not just pointing you, right? I got the three fingers back at me. I got to take the plank out of my own eye. If I want to see my family faithful, if I want to see my boys faithful, if I want to have a great, growing and thriving relationship with my wife, if I want to see my extended family, I need to work on myself before I get out and start pointing the blame. Here's a question to consider. You know, Jesus came and he was there to go into your heart, right? And the Bible describes that our bodies are our temples, right? If he had to go into your life, what needs clearing in your heart and your life? If he had to clear the temple, right? What would need clearing? What would he be indignant about in your life? And how are you taking care of your temple, your walk with God? All right, let's end here. I know we're going over a little over, but let's end here with the last point. You know, God's championship looks different, right? You know, we end here. Now, this ends kind of the passage we're looking at. We're only looking at the first 16 or 17 verses. But here it's like, it ends with he comes in, starts with it comes on the donkey, and everybody's like, it's awesome. It ends with him clearing the temple, right? And we stop there. But we know the story leads to the cross, right? The ultimate championship, the ultimate win over death was Jesus dying on the cross. But it looked different because him dying on the cross, people were like, this is not the way it's supposed to be. when they were looking for a Messiah, they were looking for another David, reborn, right? And what David did for God's people was incredible. He single-handedly, with his leadership, with his bravery, with his prowess, he defeated all these nations surrounding this certain area around Jerusalem. And he controlled every major trade route, which why leading into Solomon's reign, his son after him, was so rich, because they cornered the market, right? It'd be almost like U.S. cornering the market on China and the UK and all the money fueled to U.S. and being the richest nation, because you couldn't do anything without going through the U.S. That's what David did. And he did it by just defeating people like a boss, like no one could stand up to him. And they were thinking, okay, if the Messiah comes, surely it's going to be like David. But God's championship looks different than we expected. You know what they got? They got a suffering servant. They got a Messiah who preached and did and served and did amazing things, right? A totally different leader in that way, unlike anyone that we've seen in Scripture. But then gave himself to the authorities and just brutally embarrassed, and then dies on a cross. Now and I've said this many times, we as Americans today, or just people in this time, the brutality is the one that stands out to us. And it didn't so much. The brutality was definitely extreme, but back in the day, you had people, even in our country's history, going and watching public executions, right? Even in the history of our world, it was kind of a family affair. You had the family watching public executions. The brutality wasn't as offensive as we might see, right? They don't televise lethal injections. They don't televise capital punishment in our day. But people, families, groups, the town went to do that. What in their time was so scandalous is the way and the mode, right? You dying on a cross shows that it is the worst. You're the worst offender, right? Because murderers and just horrible people are up there. And so the fact that here's your Messiah, not just like, okay, he's in jail, or okay, he's going to die for his punishment. He's up there with the worst of the worst people, right? It'd be like finding out the head minister or pastor of your church has got involved with pedophilia, right? Like that's a scandal among the members. That's the view of seeing their servant dying, seeing their Messiah dying on the cross. The cross was not a place where anyone good would go. It was scandalous to see that. And that's what they were looking at. And then you're looking at like, wait, we're going to win? I thought this was our year. We just had him on the donkey and stuff like just weeks ago. Like, he's now dying on what is happening right now? And it was not what they expected. But you know what? Jesus won by losing. He won by losing, right? In 1 Corinthians chapter 1, verse 20 to 25, winning never looked like what we always imagine. I love this verse from what Paul's describing the world and how God thinks. And in 1 Corinthians chapter 1, it says, and verse 20 says, where is the wise person? Where is the teacher of the law? Where is the philosopher of this age? Has not God made foolish the wisdom of the world? For since in the wisdom of God, the world through its wisdom did not know him, God was pleased through the foolishness of what was preached to those who believe. The Jews demand a sign, the Greeks look for wisdom, but we preach Christ crucified, a stumbling block to the Jews and foolishness to the Gentiles. But those whom God has called, both Jews and Greeks, Christ's power of God and the wisdom of God. For the foolishness of God is wiser than human's wisdom, and the weaknesses of God is stronger than human strength. Paul, fast forward, taught that God's plan of salvation was frustrating. It's frustrating for the Jews because they look for signs, right? They look for the Messiah to be this, and it wasn't. It wasn't what they expected. And the Greeks were like, they look for wisdom, and more, you can translate that to scientific, explanations for these things. wasn't there, right? They thought it was foolishness to die on a cross. Who dies on a cross and becomes emperor, right? That's what the Greeks thought. Rome thought, right? But then God's people thought, man, who dies as the Messiah? He's no David. How does that happen? You know, God sent a Savior to earth only to die horrifically. It's not what the Jews wanted. It's not what they hoped. They became blinded. And we've got to learn, as Christians, not to be blinded by the world's success, or what the world defines as successful. And typically what the world defines as successful is when something is positive, or gives the positive result, or benefits you in some way positively. And that's not the case. That is not the case. And way God does things, right? The way God does things it just goes about in a different way. His secret sauce involves suffering. And it's all over Scripture. Involves suffering and going through some things, or persecution, or building our faith through the hard way, right? Pain and toiling. And producing in us something much rich and much stronger, right? And we got to be careful of that, because if we're looking for the positive outcome, and not to say that God doesn't bless us in those things, but that's not the norm. You know, what for our brothers and sisters or Christians that's all over the world that's living in a situation, maybe there's this bad government in a way that's like actively pursuing them, right? They can't express their faith, right? And Christians in Islamic states, right? Or Christians that you know, I know personally a brother who's spending time in China. He's like, man, we can't even carry a Bible with us. Well, what do you do then? God's against us. No, they're still helping people become Christians. Again, it's never the outside influences. And that's the trap that we can fall into. Same way the Jews did, the same way that the scriptures, Paul's talking about the Greeks. The Jews especially looking for these outside things. Well, he's got to look like this, he's got to be this, and he's got to carry himself this way. And they missed who Jesus was, because they had their own opinions about what God should do and what their opinions of success looks like. And we can do the exact same thing. Put too much emphasis, again, the elections are like literally 2 weeks away. We can put too much emphasis on who's going to be next in charge of our country. Again, like I mentioned earlier, put too much emphasis on these outside factors. That's, we deem it's going to be God's blessing to save us. And if we're not careful, we'll miss God the way his people did, when he was literally walking in front of them. You know, John, you don't have to go there, but John 5, he even says that. He's like, you study the scriptures diligently, and you don't find it. You're looking for salvation. You know, I'm here, right? The Messiah is here. But they had a different idea. We have to be careful not to fall into that trap. It will take suffering, just like Jesus. If we want to be like Jesus, just like Jesus. And we'll end here, Hebrews 5, 7 through 10. And I love this scripture because it really encapsulates Jesus' life and what it meant. In Hebrews 5, 7 through 10, again, this is spoken to an audience in Hebrews who are contemplating and their faith is waning, right? They're losing that hope and listening to the world. It says, during the days of Jesus' life on earth, in verse 7, he offered up prayers and petitions with fervent cries and tears to the one who can save him from death. And he was heard because of his reverent submission. The Son, though he learned obedience from what? He suffered. And once made perfect, he became a source of eternal salvation for all who obey him. And he was designated by God to be highest priest in the order of Melchizedek, which you can't get higher than that, right? He was raised the CEO of CEOs in God's, kingdom. And it's like, wow. But that was all caused by the obedience of what he learned from what he suffered, right? And he made those submissions and cries to God, but he submitted himself to God's plan, which meant obedience and suffering. And again, I have some scriptures on the screen for you to write down. All these scriptures point to just suffering for our faith, persecution for our faith. Not to be, and it's not even like we were going to suffer and grind it out. It was like, don't be alarmed, or don't be surprised when this happens. This should happen, right? This is part of walking like Jesus. And we have to be careful of this. first world, the nations, these powerful nations, America being one of them, we have to be careful of this. Because our brothers and sisters in developing countries, they understand this. It's like, okay, yeah, that's a no-brainer. I walk out, I could go to jail today because of my faith. I walk out, there's famine is real. I read these scriptures of famine. It's real in my town, right? And I think for us as Americans and those who are in countries that we're lucky and grateful that we're not experiencing these situations, I think we suffer the most in that, or challenge us to say the most in that. And we have to suffer through it faithfully. Here's some lasting questions here as we end. Consider how you process suffering as a Christian. Consider that. How do you process suffering as a Christian? Do you view opposition, struggle, or obstacles as punishment? You done something wrong, or opportunities to have your faith grow? How do you view those things? As we end, when I look at those points and I look at this life, Jesus' life in Matthew 21, I see like the cross is the true victory that the world needs, right? These teams, can start for Super Bowl, but man, the cross is what we all should be searching for, right? And for those that we're presenting Jesus to, that's the win that they need. Not the job, not the elected official, not the home or the certain location you need to be in. They need Jesus and the cross. And then Christians must examine ourselves and not blame outside factors, right? Blaming the world. We need to examine ourselves and figure out, what do I need to grow in, right? To make the world a better place. What do I need to change? Not what the world needs to change. And then lastly, we got to understand, we win by losing. We win by taking the humble route. We win by not the flash bang, overt thing. We win by subversion, right? Us befriending people, winning over relationships, being humble, changing things that people point out in us. Hopefully to be able to connect with people on a real level, a substantive level, right? And that's the cause that we should be fighting for. Giving up our lives, giving up our time, our luxury, and our leisure to go and step into someone's world and help them, right? We win that way by losing ourselves. In fact, the Bible preaches that in Matthew or Luke 9 and Matthew 10, right? That we give up ourselves. That's how we win. But if we try to gain the world, we lose it. We lose ourselves in the process. And so, church, I hope this helped you. I'm sorry it went long, but I didn't preach a lot, and it got a little long. I got really excited. Hopefully this was helpful for you, and you could take away some things to help you this week and beyond. And be grateful for your faith if you're a Christian. And if you're not a Christian, figure out what that means. Thank you. Thanks again for joining our live stream service. We have discussion questions located in the description for deeper reflection on today's sermon. If you're visiting with us and you want to get connected, you can visit our website at gpcc.org, click on the Contacts tab, and send us your information. And we will reach out and connect with you as soon as possible. We will end with one last song to end our live stream service. We are encouraged you joined us this morning, and we hope you have a great rest of your day. Thank you.